Good morning, everybody. We will start here at 9:30. I'm just going to open this feed so people can join. Come on in, and we'll get started here at 9:30. You got it on here? Okay, now type in here in the comments. Say thank you for joining. Thank you. Try to use punctuation. Thank you for joining. Please hold all questions to the end of the seminar. We'll have a Q&A. Once again, everybody, thank you for joining. Who's coming in right now? We will start at 9:30. Reply directly to the person now. Just roll the feed. All right, folks, thanks for joining. We're just setting up our computers, getting everything set up for this. So please join us, and we will start the actual seminar at 9:30. Good morning, everybody. We'll be starting at 9:30. We'll be starting here just in a moment. Okay, I think that's puts us at 9:30, and it's ready to start. Welcome everybody to the Winterizing seminar. I appreciate everybody joining. My name is Patrick Clyde. I'm the service manager here at Burlington RV. Behind the camera, I have a new employee that has just joined our Burlington RV family, which is Robert. He'll be manning the technical side and writing down all your questions and comments as they come across. We do ask that you hold all questions until the very end of the seminar, so that way we can get through the items that we need to get through right here, and then any individual questions you have about winterization we can answer at the end. So please hold all questions to the very end. It just helps everything go smooth. Also, I'd like to start off, we did something different here. We wanted to get your feedback about our seminars and what seminars you would like to hear. So we did a drawing here for that type of, for people putting in comments about what they would like to see. So I got a lot of feedback from that. A lot of these items on here I can mix in with certain seminars that we existingly have, and some that I've added that really are something I never thought about adding into it. So it's great feedback. We do have a winner. They won a director's chair and an awning mat. The name they pulled out of there is, I'm sorry to say I'm not the greatest at pronouncing last names on some of these, Jeff Robolowski. I'll also have Robert back here write it up there so that way he can see that he is the winner, and we will contact you at the end. So I'll give this over to Robert, and he will have that. Here's the name. Okay, well, let's get started. First off, we're going to be going over two types of winterizing campers. I mean, there's a lot of them out. There's a lot of different styles. There's a lot of different models, and there's not one of the same, but they all have the general basic idea. So that's what we're really going to teach you, is the general basic idea of a Winterize. One is going to be the basic system that they've been using for a long time, and the second one is going to be the Nautilus system. So I'll start with the basic one first. But before we start, everybody always asks me, when's a good time to winterize my camper? When should I get it done? I'm going to tell any service person is going to tell you the best time to winterize it is immediately upon your last camping trip, or if we know the freeze is coming. Try not to wait on this stuff. In Wisconsin, we don't know when it's going to freeze. I think we had an early freeze last year, was almost mid or late October, which isn't too far off. And the hard freeze, every RVer knows the hard freeze in any service shop, which was November 6th last year, just because we all stayed very late trying to get every single one of them done, so that way there's nothing on our lot that hasn't been winterized. But it is important to do your winterize upon the last trip, or the freeze if you know it's coming. Freeze definitely the last trip. So if you're done with it after Labor Day, let's get it winterized. Let's get it buttoned up, because you don't want to risk it. Those repairs can be very costly. If you forget to winterize it, or you have to wait too long, or any of those items, this is what could happen to you. This is a water heater that has exploded from freeze damage. Sorry, I cannot see the other side of the camera, so I hope you can see this clearly. But this is completely exploded. And that's because there's water left in this when it froze, obviously, and expanded and caused this. So it's important not to wait. I get a lot of phone calls like the day before it's about to freeze, and I just don't physically have the manpower to get 300 units done in one day. So it's important to plan ahead. I emphasize that. I will be putting out 2 videos within the next 2 weeks on a Nautilus system dewinterized and a basic system. I'm sorry, dewinterized. I said a Nautilus system winterized and a regular system winterized. So I'll be doing a step-by-step process the exact same way I did the dewinterized one. So if you look at the dewinterized one and you want to gander through it, it's a great educational thing. It's just what I'm going to do in the winterized is pretty much in reverse. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we want to talk about is our first step. The first step to do is to drain the low point drains. Well, we need to find those low point drains. And to be honest with you, you should know where they're at, because you should be draining the low point drains after every camping trip. We never want water to stay inside those lines when you're not using it, because it becomes stagnant and it can get that rotten egg smell or that nasty smell. I have chemicals to get it out, but a lot of times when it's in there, it's very hard, like almost like the placebo effect. It's hard for people not to smell it, even though others can't. So it's important to make sure that you drain all the water out of your system after every camping trip. But if you don't know and you didn't know that, we need to locate the low point drain so you can winterize it correctly. And the best way, I would say 90% of low point drains are going to be located obviously on the bottom, well, they're all on the bottom of the camper, and they're usually going to be next to each other. You've got a hot water and a cold water side. It's not going to look exactly like this, but take all this out of the equation and they're just going to have a blue line and a red line sticking out the bottom. You could have a cap on there, or it could just be an open hose like this. Either way, you will find usually these two pieces, like the red and blue, right next to each other. They will be located there. Now I said to drain it, you want to remove the cap, but you may not have a cap at the bottom. If you do, you just unscrew it, it drains out, no big deal, it goes on the ground. Let's say there's no cap down here, then you would have what's called a valve. And that valve will be directly in line with it. It will always be vertical. They'll never put the valve over here. Here, I'll draw it. Sorry, I'm not a drawer. It won't be over there, it won't be over here. It'll always be above the, like either right on below the floor line or right above the floor line, but parallel with that line. It will never venture off somewhere else on the low point drain. So it's always parallel, so it should be relatively easy to find. If you do have a cap for a low point drain, I do recommend that you put one of these turnstile, take the cap off and just add one of these turnstile valves on the bottom of the cap. It makes it so much easier to drain it. You know, you don't get your hand wet, you just turn it and it opens up and it comes right out. So I do recommend getting those and putting it on. It makes it easier to winterize, it makes it easier to de-winterize, it makes it easier to when you're camping. So if you have the caps, I'd get rid of them and put these on. Just an opinion, not a necessity. So once you find those low point drains, you're gonna open them up, drain the water out. Now the next thing I like to do is drain the water heater plug, or if you were listening to me earlier, it should already be drained because there should never be water in there when you're not using it. So if you haven't done that, you just want to pull the water heater plug, which will be located at the back of the water heater. This one's kind of a tank, so it's not a good visual aid, but the water heater plug is either a anno rod that looks like this, and it'll be located at the very bottom of your water heater, and that would be a Suburban water heater if you have this, or it'll be a plastic cap. It's not exactly this one, but it looks similar to it. And then those are pulled off at the bottom. You always want to take them off every time you're done camping, so there should be no water in here anyway, but if you have not, when we're winterizing, we want to open that up next. After we did the low point drains, we open that plug, we let the water heater drain out. So once we have completed those two steps, the water heater and the low point drains, I like to, that's what this is or this, hook up some sort of blow off system. We want to blow the lines. So something like this, or they even have a quick connecting hose. We want to blow that line out. Now there's two things you need to know when you do this. Number one, I always leave something open when I do this, whether it's a low point drain, a faucet, but one item I always leave open. I never close it off when I start blowing out a line, so that way that doesn't build up so much pressure that it could cause any issues. Number two, I do not put any more than 40 PSI through the lines when I hook it up. No more than 40 PSI. Any higher can cause leaks or damage in spring. So when you hook it all back up. So please, 40 PSI and leave one valve open, whether it's a faucet, it doesn't matter, hot or cold, whatever. Just something open so that air can breathe out. Technically I would go with the cold, and I usually do a low point drain how I do it. We'll hook up that connection and this gets hooked up to the city water connection, just so you know. I probably should have mentioned that. This will get hooked up to the city water connection. We'll blow the lines out, and we'll turn a compressor on, we'll hook it up, we'll let it blow at 40 PSI, and we'll go around and we'll open all the faucets to make sure all the water is being blown out of it. That is a good trick to do. It ensures that you're getting everything. So after you've done that, go ahead and take this off. You're done with blowing out the lines. We now have to change our water heater from camping mode to bypass mode, because we do not want to fill this tank up with 6 gallons of antifreeze. It's just costly. It's a pain to get this stuff out of it. It gets real milky. You'd be buying a ton of antifreeze, so no reason to put any antifreeze in this tank. We want to bypass it. That's why they create that bypass system. And this bypass, I put 2 different types that are very common in trailers, and I'll show them for you. They're always on the back side of the water heater. Unless you have a Nautilus system, I'll get into that later. But for the folks that don't have the Nautilus system, you will find these bypass valves. They're always back there. There are 3 different systems. I built 2 of them to show you. But they're on the back side of the water heater. So in order to locate it, you just need to go outside, find where the water heater is, and then go back inside directly behind there, because this is the size of it. It doesn't look exactly like this behind there. It's like in a styrofoam case, but it will be directly behind there. So they'll always give you either a drawer to remove or a panel to take off to get access to it. Yes, some of them are easier to get to than others. Sometimes I have to get my arm in there like a pretzel to turn these things. Sometimes I can crawl my whole body in there and turn them no problem. So every model's different, and it's just kind of what they have the available space for. So most commonly used is a 3-valve system. So this would be where the water heater is. So it would hook up, this is the back side of the water heater. It would hook up like here. So your water heater is here, and this is what you're looking at. So the water is going, let me fix this to where it should be so I can explain this. Your water will be flowing through here, right? And then through here, but because we closed this valve, it is not flowing through here. This is camp mode, because we don't want to, if you left this valve open and you had water flowing through here and through here, you're getting hot water here, but you're also mixing it with cold water. So what's going to happen is you're going to get lukewarm water no matter what. It'll never change. So if you ever have an issue in summer or spring and you're only getting lukewarm water, you more than likely forgot to turn this valve. It's very, very common. I get that call all the time. But what we want to do is we want to eliminate the water from going into this water heater. Can they see this pretty good? Okay. Okay. Just want to make sure you guys can see it, just because I can't. We want to eliminate water going from into here or into this tank or filling anything. We want to fill just antifreeze, so we don't want to go into here. So the line is parallel, which means that the way it's going to flow. So right now it's in parallel, so it's flowing through here. Okay, actually, sorry, screw. I was talking everything backwards. Your water heater is over here. I apologize for that. That was my fault. I'm looking at everything backwards over here. Your water heater's on this side. That was embarrassing, because water's flowing through here, stopping here, flowing through here, stopping here, so that's where it's coming through. So I apologize. Your water heater's on this side. You're going to be seeing this. You're going to want to close this right here and this right here. This will stop the water from going into your tank right here. And then over here, it'll stop the water from going into here. I've blocked these valves so no water can pass through here, but I still need to get it to the hot side. So I need to open this. So now antifreeze can flow through here, up, through here, and here, but it'll never go into my tank over here. I apologize, I had this backwards the way I was looking at it. So your water heater's over here, it cannot flow through. So this is the correct bypass for a 3-valve system. This is in bypass. You would be safe to run your antifreeze at this point. We can get back to that if you have any questions, because I screwed up on which side on the way it was. Luckily, I can't screw this one up because it's only a 2-valve system. This is another one that you might see. Now, don't worry if you don't see these exact color valves on here. They could be black. Manufacturers use a lot of different type of valves, but it's usually a turnstile valve that does, you know, basically turns. No big deal. So it's the same concept. We want water to bypass. We don't want it to go into the tank anymore. Over here, I'll just leave it like that. It is upside down, but it's all right. We don't want water to flow into the tank anymore. We want it to bypass. It's the same concept as that 3-valve system, but you only have 2. So you're just going to turn this. So we're going to tell it to stop going over here. This turns it, shoots it straight up. It's basically an L valve. It goes up that way. It no longer can go over here anymore. And we're going to turn this one so it's pointing down, so that way it has no way of going over here. It's going over here now. So basically, turn, down, forces it to go like that. So that's what we want. It's a basic concept. We don't want anything to go in there. You just got to think, we're eliminating that out. So how can I do that? Basically turning both valves. So it's pretty cut and dry. So this is what you would see on a 2-valve system, for the valves to be pointing through to be going the correct direction. Because that way they're going that way as the valves point. So this is one of the ways. There is one last way, and it could be a single valve system. Now this one is very, very rare. So just imagine there's no valve here, and it's just a T. That means there's a check valve at the top. And if there's a check valve at the top, the water can only go one way, so then you would just turn this. It would force it to go here, but it couldn't go into the tank because this is a check valve. Tent trailers might have those. It's not as common. It's pretty, I see them maybe one a year. Out of the hundreds of winterizes we do, I see one. It's not very common, but if you come across it, I honestly don't like even explaining it, because I really don't want people to think that they just found one and stop looking for the others. So it has the same concept of all three of these have the same T concept. So you just got to find the valves. Next, now that we've got our low points blown out, or all of our lines blown out, water heater drain plug is out, it's drained. Our bypass, our water heater is in bypass. So we need to find the water pump. And we usually have a big board when we do this in person, but unfortunately it's too large for me to bring up to this room. So I'm gonna have to draw this one out for you to kind of give you a visual aid of what it is. But the easiest way to find the pump, the water pump, is I just turn it on and listen. We all know that water pumps make noise. So people call a lot of times and say, I have this model, where's my water pump? There are so many models. None of us know exactly where each water pump is. The easiest way to find it is just turning it on for a few seconds. We can listen and it'll give us a general area, and they always give us some sort of access to these water pumps. I never said that it's easy access, but some sort of access to them. So we want to find that water pump, and once we do, we are hoping to see, not every camper has this, but I would say 90% that have this style do have this. So you have, I do everything in squares, bear with me. That's my water pump. You probably can't read that, but water pump. That's my water pump. That's my tank, my freshwater tank. So I hope you guys can see this. Can they see that on there at all?
They can.
Okay.
You're in camera.
Okay. So here's my tank, here's my water pump, and I have a line going from the tank to the water pump, right? And then from that water pump, it goes to everything else in the trailer, you know, wherever it has to go. It's gonna head in there, and it always ends at the city water connection. So once we find this water pump, on this side of the pump, where it's taking from the tank, I will find a valve here that looks no different, in most cases, like that valve.
Hey Patrick, can you move the board a little closer?
Yeah.
That way they can see it a little more clearly.
If somebody has to move it closer, give me a second here. We also have like a 10-second delay here, so bear with me. Give it about 10 seconds. I just want to make sure it's in clear. Can you see that?
A lot better.
Okay. Sorry. Like I said, we have a huge board when we do this live, so everybody can see all the way back in the back row. So now that we have this valve here, and it looks, like I say, just like this one here, and then it'll go to a hose. It's usually a hose that looks no different than your water hose that you hook up at the campsite. The only difference is it's only one, it's hooked to a T-valve, and there's just a cut-off end at the end. That's the end you're gonna stick into the water pump. So what we wanna do is turn that valve that looks just like this one, and let's just say this is going to the pump and this is going to the tank, and this is that little hose that came out there, but it's going to look like an actual hose. We're going to turn it because we don't want to take it from the tank anymore. We want to take it from this hose. So we're going to close off the tank and take it from this hose so we can turn the pump on and it'll suck the antifreeze through. So we want to do that, and then basically that hose will go here, and then we'll put it into, I do boxes, I'm sorry, into the antifreeze, let's just pretend that's there, and that's going to be taking from that. And then we'll turn the pump on to start pumping it through, but I'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to move this back real quick. All right, so now that we've got the pump, we got it in bypass, we have got the antifreeze right here. Please need to tell everybody this: do not use automotive antifreeze by any means necessary. It will hurt you. Use RV antifreeze. Some of these ingredients that are in this stuff is some of the stuff that's in Diet Coke from what I've heard, and different things, but technically they say it's safe if you actually consume some, but I really would not consume any. I don't know, I've read it to where it's not a good idea, but I mean, safe on copper, glycone, ethanol free. So please, we still want to rinse everything out, but don't use any type of antifreeze that you'd purchase at AutoZone or anything like that. It must be RV antifreeze. This stuff is very common during this time of year, very easy to find. Hopefully it won't have any issues. We've had problems getting parts due to COVID. Hopefully this won't be any problem. I don't think it will be. But the antifreeze, make sure you use that. We've got that hooked up. Once we do, we want to make sure we've got everything in bypass. We want to make sure all the valves are closed. So if you had your low points open, we want to close them. Make sure, I like to do it this way. You ask 10 people, they'll give you 10 different answers, but I just like to start with everything closed so I know I don't miss anything. So I will then turn my pump on and it will start to suck antifreeze in, and I will usually start at the low point drain out there. That's kind of what I do. I'll open up the cold side of the low point drain and I'll wait for it to come out just because it's right there. If it's on the other side and you want to start somewhere else, there's really no definitive place, but I always start on the cold side no matter what I do. But there's no, you can start inside on the cold side, but you want to go through every single cold valve in there. So go to the outside, open it up, and wait till you see pink come out. Close that one off. If you have the caps, you're going to have to turn the pump on, wait for it to come out the cold side, then turn the pump off and put the cap back on. Hence why I like to put a valve there so I don't have to do that. I can just turn the pump on, I can turn the valve, wait, and then close it. It just makes it 10 times easier. So once we let it come out the cold low point drains, you're going to go to the faucet, cold, turn it on, let it go through all the way around. You want to make sure you hit your outside shower. You hit, don't forget those, kitchen faucet, shower, inside, all the way around. Once you get all those completely full of antifreeze, you're going to then go to the hot side and go all the way around and do the same thing. We want to see antifreeze come out of anything that protrudes water out. Okay, anything that protrudes water out, we want to see pink antifreeze come out of there. So now that we've established that we've got pink through all of our lines, we want to now continue on. That makes everything in our system completely antifreeze. We should have no problems with our actual plumbing lines, not our drain lines, but our plumbing lines of having any issues of freezing. So now that we've done that, we then want to go through, you may have already filled some of your P-traps up with antifreeze while you were doing that with the faucets, but I still like to go over there, pour a little bit down each shower, any drain system. I just want to make sure there's no water in there. I don't want to crack a P-trap. I do get a lot of those in spring too as well. So please pour it down each of your P-traps. Would be a good idea. Now that we've got that done, there are two other items that we want to talk about. So One is our outside shower. We've got to remember those. Those are the most commonly forgotten item when we winterize. Don't forget about them. They will crack, they will create a leak. Some of them have those quick connect outside shower fittings. Make sure you hit those. That is the most common one forgotten. Because if it isn't, it'll crack right there and it'll completely flood your coach in spring if it's cracked. So don't forget that one. Next one, and this is a big one. If you have a residential refrigerator, your residential refrigerator with an ice maker or a water filtration system on there, make sure that you have to put that pump, put your antifreeze in there and have it under pressure until you are able to produce ice cubes that look like slushy pink balls or cubes, and you can break them apart if you want. But you must make pink slushy ice cubes. If you do not, you will freeze the back of that ice maker. There's no blowing out that system. Every time I've heard of anybody trying to blow it out, I've seen problems. So it's better to be safe than sorry. So just run it under pressure with the antifreeze until you make pink slushy ice cubes. That is important. That is the only way I've ever seen that is actually 100% successful of making sure that system is completely winterized. So that is important. Also, I skipped something that I remembered when talking about the residential fridges. This is more in the earlier steps, so almost the first steps. If you do have a filter housing, make sure to remove the filter before you start too as well. Pull all filters before you start. What happens if you leave that in there, a lot of times these can actually dilute the antifreeze and it actually turns white. Refrigerator filters are another one that are common with that, to where they'll make like kind of white cubes a little bit that are slushy. If you leave that filter in there, and sometimes you have to because the fridge won't operate unless it has that filter in there. So you're still gonna make cubes. It may not be as pink, that's okay. Just put your hand in there, feel them, make sure they can break apart easy with your hand in the freezing temp. So, not a big deal, but make sure you pull these out. Another thing, if you pull these out and you have to put it back on, so that way you can fill it up with antifreeze, they do sell this right here. This is a little cap that goes into these. It fits most of them. It'll slide right in there, and then you can twist it back on, and you don't have to fill this whole thing with antifreeze, which can save you some money. Most trailers take about 2 to 3, usually 2 gallons of antifreeze, but sometimes I tell people to get 3 just to be on the safe side. In case you leave a faucet on too long, you don't want to have to run all the way back to the store for, the price of a gallon of antifreeze. So I usually tell everybody to get 3. If you have something larger like a Solitude or Momentum or something of that magnitude or size, 4 or 5, just to be safe. If you have a washer and dryer, there are some washer and dryers that have a button that say Winterize. Otherwise, if they don't, you just have to run a cold cycle and a hot cycle to get pink in there. So that way nothing freezes on that side. If you do not have a washer and dryer, but have a washer and dryer hookup, that doesn't exclude you from having to do something. If you have those hookups, you need to open those faucets and produce antifreeze through it, because there's still water to that line. If you don't do that, that line will crack. When you come in spring, you have a major leak in there. So please don't forget about your washer and dryer, even if you don't have them. But if you have the option, you need to do something about that. So those are the basic, the last thing. The last thing, and this is another one that is commonly forgotten, and I apologize, I didn't bring anything up here to show you this, but it's I call it a Santa flush. There's 100 names for it. The flush out system, the black tank flush out system. Most campers are coming equipped with it. You can do 2 things. The number 1 surefire way to make sure that you are not going to have an issue with that siphon filter, because what happens is that, it's a good thing to show you actually. I'll pull this closer. Okay, so that black tank flush out system, here's the bottom of your trailer, right? And then here's your black tank. And then, sorry, it's not sticking out that low. I'm just trying to give you a visual aid. And then here's your flush out system that you have to hook your hose up to, right here. So that line goes up to here inside your camper, usually behind the showers where I find them, but they could be anywhere, it just depends on the location of the black tank. And it'll go to what's called a siphon filter, right here, and then it goes back down. And that's so that no particles of poop can go back up through the system and back out, which is as per design. But this Santa Flush system, or flush out system, whatever you'd like to call it, is not integrated to any of your plumbing lines in your unit. It is its own separate system. And that's important to know, because when you winterize all your plumbing lines, that did not get winterized unless you did something about it. So just remember the Santa Flush system, don't forget about it. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So, one sec here. So once you've located the surefire way to do it is with a handheld pump. I'll show you this side so you can see it. And basically this thing's pretty cut and dry. You just hook the hose up to the Santa Flush, and then you stick this part into the gallon of antifreeze, and you just pump it through. And once you start seeing, I mean, it's not going to take a whole lot, but maybe 4 or 5 pumps. I would say if you got the antifreeze to like right here, I'm sure you got all the antifreeze through that system. But you're going to pump that antifreeze through into the black tank, right in there. That's the surefire, never fail system to do it that way. The other way you can do it, which works too, I do it this way, I don't have a problem with it. It's not putting antifreeze through, but you can put, just like either one of these, the blowout systems, and you can blow that line out. So if you want to hook those up to your flush out system and blow it at 40 psi, that will work too, not a big deal. No, I've never had anybody freeze out a siphon filter that did this. So both ways work. It's a preference, realistically speaking. So either way, you can do that. Now, last but not least, your black tanks, the tanks themselves. Everybody says I dump my black tank, it's empty, or gray tank, it's empty. I can truly tell you that there is no such thing as a completely dumped, just by normal processes, going up to the dump tank and pulling it. Your black tank is never completely empty because it's not perfectly at an angle this way. If you're slightly this way, it's all about angles. I've seen a lot of people come up to our dump station and they have like a couple boards that they set up, and it's almost like a routine when they dump, and they set those boards right in front of the tires right before they pull up to dump, and then that pulls it up and tilts their camper slightly at the dump station. That is the best thing you can do, because that will ensure that it's getting almost 99% of all that fluid out of the black and gray tank. After that, I like to put a little storage chemical in there. I like to pour some antifreeze in there just to make sure everything is secured. And then some people say that they like to leave those valves open. Not a bad idea either. But it's up to you which route you want to go. I just tend to say if you're going to leave the valve open, make sure it's the last thing you do, because if you open it up and take it to the storage yard and somebody's driving behind you, I can promise you they're not going to be happy with you because something's coming out of there. So please, if you plan to do it that way, it's fine. Just do it at the storage yard or where you store it at your house without moving it, never drive with those valves open. I'm sure all of us are probably snickering and laughing right now because they know they don't want to never do that. But just something for tit for tat. Just so you know, very few models that you go to the water pump and you can't find that hose that goes in there. It does happen from time to time where the manufacturer expects you to put 8 gallons of antifreeze into your fresh tank and pump it through that way. To me, that seems like a waste of time and money. I would rather you pick up something like this. Excuse me. All right, sorry about that. I would pick up something like this right here. It is a bypass valve. And that way you can add it into that line that I erased already, but tank to pump, you can add that in between there. I would. It's just easier. Apologize, that's actually the water heater bypass, but same thing. They have the valve kit that goes over there, just a 3-way valve with a hose. Not a big deal. I would add it. Other than that, that's everything on a basic system. I know I went over a lot of different areas. So now what I want to go over is a Nautilus system, and I really wish I could have done this one in live out in the showroom, but it's a lot easier to explain. I will be putting a video out of a how-to, just like the de-winterized one, for a Nautilus and the regular system. Okay, I only have time to do those two. Those are the most common, but most of them all have the same basic concept, so you can utilize that information as needed. So I printed this off, and I'm going to bring this up here. It says Nautilus P1. I don't have the ability to send you guys links to this stuff through here, but if you wanted to, you can just go into a Google search and type in Nautilus P1, and then if it pulls up, there's one, I did it yesterday and it pulled up Grand Design. You can click on it and it gives you a PDF file to download this. I like this one. It's a good read. I thought there was a couple things in there that was a little different, but all in all, it is a great thing to read over of how to winterize this system. So just type in Nautilus P1 Winterize, and this popped right up. So if you want to go over that, but I'll explain this for you. Marked my page. So to start, it still has the same basic context of the original one we did, that we still need to blow out these lines, and it's important to do so. So what you're going to do, and I'm going to kind of come around the other side so I can see. Okay, I know some people may have a 5-valve system, a 4-valve system, but in this system, what you're going to want to do, this is just telling you dry camping, power tank fill, city water, winterize, sanitize. What we want to do is we want to turn all of these, every single one of these, the blue, the white, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this, the blue, the white, the red, the green, we want to turn them all to a 45-degree angle. So they're going to be pointed this way. And this one will be pointed this way. I'm so sorry, it's probably shaking on your screen here. This way and this way. Everything with that a 45-degree angle. Sorry, that one would go that way. So now that we have everything at a 45-degree angle for this Nautilus system, we are then going to take our blowout system. We're going to hook it up to the city water connection that's right there, and we are going to blow out those lines. Okay, the same concepts apply to where you have to do the low point drains. You've got to open up all the low point drains, make sure your water heater is drained. If you have a tankless water heater, don't worry about that one. You do not need to drain that one, as there's no tank in there. So that one will put antifreeze through the system. Tankless water heaters, you don't need to worry about draining. But if you have a tank, you want to still make sure that you pulled your water heater drain plug, and then you're going to blow out that system. Okay, so after you've blown out that system and you went to all the faucets, but remember, one of them was open all the time, just like before. So you've opened up the one valve, you've hooked it up, you've blown out anything that protrudes water, and everything's just coming out air, maybe a couple little bubbles, you're good. So now that you've done that, we can start our winterizing process. So this one's a little bit pretty simple. So this one here says to turn, I call this the Rubik's Cube. So you're just going to pick the pattern you want. Right now I want to winterize. Ooh, actually no, you're fine. You want to pick winterize right here, so you're going to turn all the valves so that way when you're looking at the valve itself, it should look like this picture right here. Okay? And that's going to do the same concept as the regular system to where it's going to use the pump to bypass the tank, and it's going to bypass the water heater right there. That's technically where it bypasses the water heater. So it's everything in that panel. And it's a very common panel used in a lot of models today. Primarily Grand Design is probably the most common to use that. Now, I'm going to teach you another little trick. The next thing you do, now that we have it in winterized mode, we have to pump the antifreeze through just like the other styles. We're going to use our antifreeze, not automotive. We're going to use regular RB antifreeze. And then they always give you like a tube, like a little hose that you can hook up to the city water that's cut off on the end. No different than the one you would find at the water pump if you had that other system. And you're supposed to hook it up to the city water connection, but I get a lot of folks that have issues getting it to suck through the Nautilus system. Like they hook the hose up and it's just not taking anything. It's not doing anything. And the reason is that you really have to get that connection, this connection really tight. And it cannot have any air in between here because then it will not suck that and siphon it into it. Now I'll give you a little trick here. The reason why that happens is because there's a check valve behind here. That way water can only go one way. It can't backfeed because your pump backfeeds the other direction. I usually take this part, which is a little screen that's located in the front. It's always pointed with the bubble out. I take it and I turn it and I put it in backwards and I pop it in there. That forces that valve open. It makes a world of difference. Every one of my techs do this. The main thing you have to remember when you do this is to flip it back. That's a forgotten item sometimes, so make sure you flip it back, or else when you turn the water pump on or something, you're going to shoot it out, you know, if you didn't have it hooked up to anything. So if I just had it sitting there backwards and I turned the water pump not hooked up to anything, it would just shoot out. So make sure that it's a little trick that we do here. It makes it 10 times easier. So do that, it works. Now that you've got it hooked up, it goes to the winterizing style, and you've taken out your filter and used your cap right here, like before. Same concept. All we got to do is turn the pump on and go to every single faucet that's in there. Inside washer and dryers, we got to go to that. We got to pump that through. Residential fridges, we got to leave the pump on, let it run for 24 hours. Go to each and every faucet. Don't forget about the outside faucet, hot and cold. And I always start cold and then I go hot. And then you also have your low point drains. So once we see antifreeze come out of every single one of these, then we know we're good. We know we're solid, and our plumbing system, not our drain system, is good to go. And it also, same concept applies for the Nautilus system. Our flush out system is not linked into anything on that Nautilus system of when I do this. So you still have to blow out your Santa flush system or pump your antifreeze through, whichever one you decide to do. That still applies. You must do that. Do not forget. I carry them in stock in spring because so many people forget to do that. So now that you've got that, you want to do your drains the same way on a Nautilus system, same way for any other system. Pour the antifreeze down, get all the antifreeze in all your P-traps. Same thing with your dump valves. You know, make sure that if you want to pour some storage in there and pour the antifreeze in there, great. If you want to be the one that pulls the handle, not while you're driving, then that's fine too. So that's two of the basic systems that are for winterizing. Like I said, I will be making two step-by-step videos, one on the Nautilus, one on a regular system, that I should be posting by the end of, not this upcoming week, the following week. So it just takes me a little bit to edit those and make sure they're right. So I will post those so that everybody has access to see that, and hopefully will help you, and hopefully there's not an early freeze before those 2 weeks. And then also I want to let everybody know that we do a waiting winterize by appointment only on Saturdays, starting I don't have a calendar and my phone is the camera, so it is not this Saturday.
Following, I believe it's in October.
It is, no, we're gonna start it, not the 19th Saturday, the following Saturday. I think it's like the 26th that week, that Saturday and beyond. Every Saturday from there on out is going to be a day that we'll be doing waiting winterizes by appointment only. So you must call into our service department and ask them for that service. We cannot do waiting appointments for a winterize for anybody that has a residential fridge or a washer and dryer hookup. Unfortunately, those take, like I said, we need to make slushy ice cubes. They take 24 hours on. We leave, most of the time when we have an ice maker in a fridge, we hook it up to pressure, we turn the pump on, turn the fridge on, and we let it sit overnight, and we come back the next morning to make sure that it has slushy ice cubes, and if it does, we're done. So we usually leave it overnight. That's what we do. So we can't do that as a waiting winterization. So any other system, you know, talk to the advisors. They'll let you know whether they can and cannot do that type of system, and they can set you up an appointment from there. That's pretty much our system, our winterizing process. I know there's a lot of them out there, and I know you probably have a few questions, so I'm opening the board to any questions, and I can go through and answer them. They got any?
It is the 26th.
Okay, it is the 26th, so I was right on that, yes.
And I'm just waiting for...
Okay. I appreciate everybody for holding the questions then.
Courtney is asking, how long is a waiting winterization appointment typically?
Courtney, would be my wife is asking?
Yes.
Okay, my wife is now asking me questions from home. Waiting winterization appointment can usually take us, we have 2 guys on it. We usually drive them through. They are not long because we put several people on them. I would say I've been able to knock them out within a half hour on most.
Okay, Robert is asking, how much does it cost to have it winterized?
It depends on the model, so I usually ask for pricing to contact the service desk, and they'll give individual pricing. I do know they have one out. I think the special they have is $130 for the normal, but there are specifics on different ones. If you have a refrigerator, it's a little bit more, but I believe the special they have is $29.99. I think it is.
Tom is asking, do you put antifreeze in the fresh tank?
Tom is asking, do you put antifreeze in the fresh tank? That's a great question. Probably should have went over that. Realistically, I leave myself, I just open it up and drain it out. I don't actually pour any in there, and I don't do it on any of my winterizes because it takes a lot to get it out. You have to flush out that system 2 or 3 times. If you leave the drain valve open and make sure you've got everything drained out, that should be good. I've never had any issues because the drain valves are at the bottom, so if it starts to expand or do anything, it's only going to go to that valve and drain out. It's almost like leaving the black tank valve open, but you know, we talked about that. So,
all right, I'm gonna probably butcher this name. Evalo is asking, do I drain the water here before or after bypassing it?
Somebody asked, do we drain the water here before or after we bypassed it? We drain that before.
Emily is asking, I bought mine in April but was not able to use it, so no water in the system. What do I need to do?
You bought yours in April, and there is, okay, you may or may not, okay, if you bought it here in April, I'm going to tell you that was the time that was, we all know that Corona started, and there was a time frame where we stopped winterizing around April 15th on some of these units that we were prepping, and we were de-winterizing. So please be safe, winterize it. You don't know if anybody put any water to it when they were testing it on a final test. You know, I apologize you haven't been able to use it or haven't used it yet, but I would still re-winterize it because April was that month that some of them were, some of them weren't, depending on what was requested. And we were closed for 2 weeks out of that month.
Sean is asking about winterizing toilets.
Sean is asking about winterizing toilets, and thank you for saying that, because now that I think back, I did not mention toilet in my seminar. Very good question. Thank you. I hope nobody left out of here before they heard that one. But anything that protrudes water, we want to make sure that we're putting antifreeze through it. So yes, you're going to step on that pedal and wait for antifreeze to come out of that. So anything that protrudes water out, we want to winterize. Thank you for that one. That was an important one.
Okay, and then
a lot of information. Sometimes I'll miss something.
Then a separate Sean is asking that he has a system similar to Nautilus. There are 2 valves with 3 positions each. Any key tips for winterizing this?
Somebody's asking if they have a 2-valve system. It's not a Nautilus system. It has a winterizing mode. The areas, that one's a little bit different because you need to know the positions, which I actually have to look at if you want to blow it out. Some of those 2-valve systems still have this valve system on the back of the water heater. So what it is it would be no different than still going back there and doing this and bypassing the water heater and doing everything we talked about before, and then going over to your 2-valve system and changing it to winterize mode and sucking the antifreeze through like a Nautilus system. But I would really rather you call into our service department just so I can verify, because there are 3 of those styles. And I don't want you to do the wrong thing. So you can call us in, we can get that information for you for the correct route for you specifically.
All right, and then Sean is asking, what do you do if you travel during winter?
If you travel during winter, I'm always a fan of not using the water system under 32 degrees. I'm sorry, I'm a fan of that. I will never say anything different because anything could happen. Realistically, though, if you were using this camper and always had it heated and had a heated underbelly with a heated pad, or if you're in a motorhome and all those tanks are in the belly that are heated, and it's an all-weather seasoned system, you can camp with this in winter as long as you're constantly running that heater and you do not let that whole coach go under 32 degrees. And the reason why I'm against that is because somebody goes out for something, goes out to dinner or does anything and has the heater running and they run out of propane and it's a freezing cold day. It does not take long for a camper to get really, really cold, and especially if it's really cold outside. I know a lot of people go down to Florida and then they come back during middle of winter here. Why, I don't know, you're coming back in the middle of winter here, but hey, timetables are timetables. You can blow out the system like we talked before. That's better than nothing, but you still, if you blow it out, you want to make sure that you get it to a service center or get it winterized, or if you can, winterize it before you leave. So you can blow it out, make it straight to a winterization station, or just winterize it before you leave.
And then Dan is asking, can you use leftover antifreeze from the previous year? Is it still viable?
Dan is asking if you can use leftover antifreeze from the prior year. Yes, I've never had any issues with that before. Totally fine. Nobody's ever said that you couldn't. And I've done it myself.
Okay, and then Derek is saying, I'm new to this whole thing. I was sold a little orange connector that's a pressure regulator. I don't think it's adjustable. What PSI should I be putting in my lines?
Derek asked that he was sold an orange brass that is a pressure regulator, and most of us have those. And he's asking what pressure should he put in his lines. It's 40 to 55 is the max water pressure that can be put through there, but when we're putting air through the lines, 40 PSI.
Okay, and then Karen is asking, do you advise pouring antifreeze into the toilet?
Do I advise pouring antifreeze into the toilet? Yeah, I'm the guy, I like to make sure everything's drained out in my black tank, and I like to close it off. I like to put a little bit of storage chemical in there, like the stored, going into storage, and then I pour some antifreeze in there. I'll pour a half a bottle of this, to be honest with you. That's what I do for mine. I just want to make sure nothing's going to freeze on my black tank, because every time I have a black tank issue here and I have to hand it to a technician to fix, I get a dirty look.
Okay, and then Tom Parker's asking, what is the accessory for pumping antifreeze into the black tank flush system called?
It's Antifreeze hand pump kit. Sorry, he asked, what is the accessory used for pumping the antifreeze into the black tank flush out system? Love the question. I'm glad you're looking into this. And this is what it is. It's from Valterra, antifreeze hand pump kit. Technically, you could even use this to pump antifreeze through your city water connection. That's a whole different ballgame, and is another way you can winterize. That's something we're not really going to go over, but it is another system if you didn't have any other way of pumping it through your system. So if you had no water pump, very little units have that. But that's what this is for. You can hook it up right there, pump it right through. RV antifreeze hand pump, Valterra. Do we have any other?
Yes, they're asking, how do I limit blowout to 40 psi? How to connect the air hose?
You must have, if you're going to do this yourself and you're going to blow it out, one, you have to have a compressor that if you have a compressor that you cannot control the gauge on of what it shoots PSI out, which is rare, every single compressor that I've come across, you can always control. But if not, you can always get an air gauge on your truck, on your air chuck. I call it a chuck, tire gauge, or whatever you want to call it. There's thousands of terms for it. You can put a pressure regulator on there and change it. My compressor at home has 2 places I can change it to set it at 45 or 40, and I also have one that attaches to my spray gun or my air chuck or whatever I want to use. I can adjust it there accordingly.
And then Sean's asking, my freshwater tank has a convex bottom and doesn't completely drain. Is there a ratio of antifreeze to water ratio that would protect it?
Somebody asked that he has a fresh tank that doesn't completely drain. This is what I would suggest for that. I don't like putting antifreeze in my fresh tank. You can if you want to. It's just a pain to get it out if you use that fresh tank. I would tend to try to drive up on a couple boards and tilt the side that it's not able to because it's concaved. You could push up on it to get the rest of the water out, but usually you got to remember, water is going to freeze. If you get a small layer in a wide, it's just like a puddle on the ground. You know, if it spreads out, as long as it's not being completely concaved or in a valve closed up, it's not going to break apart. So a little bit left over at the bottom, as long as it's not like above the line of the drain or anything like that, it's just going to freeze that little side. But I would tilt it, drain it out, push it up, get as much water as you can out, and I would avoid putting any antifreeze in that tank.
Okay, and then Emily is asking if you can explain a little bit more on blowing out your line with that valve.
Emily's asking if I can explain more on that line that when you're blowing out your valve. I believe you're talking about explain more on this line here that you're hooking up. Actually, I can show you somewhat. So here's looks just like what we have on our tires in our vehicle. So basically I'm just going to screw this to your city water connection. Everybody has something that looks just like this. And you're going to make it nice and tight. And then you're just going to hook to this. If you have a snap over one that holds, then that's real easy. But you're going to hook to this and you're just going to press open one valve or one faucet in there, and you're going to turn it on. And you make sure that that pressure gauge on your compressor is 40 psi. And you'll just blow it through. And then you got to hit everything. Oops. But it just hooks up right to that city water connection. They have some that you can hook up that are like a quick connect fitting that just lock on, and then you can just turn the pump on with that open. Then you can walk around everything, so you don't have to constantly go out there with an air chuck and turn that valve so you're pushing the air through. That's another route. We have those downstairs too. There's like 3 ways to buy these. So it depends on what equipment you have at your house is the one you're going to want to buy. So you'd want to talk to the parts department and make sure that you're purchasing the correct thing that you have that you're capable of using. But just right there. And please, I know that's out there that you can winterize a unit by blowing out all the lines and not having to worry about it. I know people have done that in the past. Yes, it is possible to blow out a line to winterize and and not use this stuff, but you have to be very mindset of what you're doing. I do not recommend doing it. I recommend as that being the only source. I recommend blowing it out, then using the antifreeze. Don't rely on just blowing it out to winterize your camper. I have a lot of folks that try that, and the next spring they're coming to see me with several leaks because it's hard to get every last drop of water out. This is just to get the majority. So please don't rely on this.
Karen is asking if we come in for a waiting winterization appointment, how closely can we watch and can we use it as a tutorial?
Karen asked if we come in for a waiting winterization, how closely can we watch? Can we use it as a tutorial? Unfortunately, Karen, I can't for insurance purposes have anybody back there watching it or going through that. If you did want to do something like that as a training, we could set up an appointment for that specifically, but not on a Saturday. And we can do that for you. Or, like I said, I'm going to be putting out a video of a how-to step-by-step on 2 different models. I hope that will help you too. That way it wouldn't be that big of an issue for that. But unfortunately, during our waiting winterizes, I can't have anybody back there because there's going to be a lot of people coming through the shop and we have to keep moving. We would not have any time to be able to explain how each individual one is. That's the given. That's the hard part about it is I can't do that. But if you do want it, we can set something up. It would just have to be during the week.
Vivela was asking, I would rather put a bunch of antifreeze in the fresh water and have the pump suck it from there. Is that okay?
Somebody asked, I would like to put the antifreeze into the fresh tank and pump it through there. You can, yes, absolutely. I just don't like doing it that way because it's tough to get all that antifreeze out of there later on. But some systems, I think Winnebago Mini Winnie, or Micro Mini, I think, don't quote me 100%, but I believe that system doesn't have that bypass and they tell you that's the way you have to do it. But when you do it that way, you're gonna have to buy probably 6 of these to fill that up because you need to get that bottom fresh tank higher than the point of where it sucks that water out. So you don't want to suck air through there. So you're going to have to pour quite a bit in there to get it above that in order to be able to suck everything through and get it to all your lines. Totally fine to do it that way. You can, absolutely. That ensures your tank in fresh water is completely safe, but during spring, you're going to have to do a lot of flush outs. You're going to have to use the sanitizer flush out and flush it out like 3 or 4 times to get it clean.
And then Elizabeth is asking, any tips on how to properly store a trailer?
Somebody asked, any tips on properly storing a trailer? Unfortunately, you will have to come see me on October 3rd, live here on Facebook, unless something changes to where we can do it out front again. You'll have to come watch that one because that's actually what our seminar is about, is postseason inspections and proper storage. So we'll be doing a whole segment on that. I don't want to get into answering that question. Only if you want to call later on and you need the answers because that's going to be too far. You can give us a call. I can go over things, but it is quite a bit of information.
Okay, and then I believe one last one from Courtney. Did you say the sales price is $129.99 for waiting appointments if someone would like a professional to do it?
Yes. Is the price $129.99 for one of our certified technicians to go through and do it? Yes.
That's all the questions so far. One last one I see. How/when could a winterized toilet be used? Let's say we get a warm weekend in November/March, or November through March, sometime then. Just make sure it stays above freezing. Drain the tank and put antifreeze in when done. Question mark.
Somebody was asking if they get a warm weekend in November. I'm telling you, I'm not going to do it in my trailer. I get a lot of hunters that go out there and they want to go out hunting during hunting season, and that's usually pretty cold out there, but every once in a while we get a warm day. I don't recommend using the water system after the hard freezes hit because all you're doing is gambling. Yes, there are ways to do it, but you have to be very cautious and very mindset of what you're doing. I can go over it on the phone. If you give us a call on Monday, I can talk it through. But I'm telling you right now, on my camper, I would never put water into it after the freeze point, just because I don't want to take the risk. I don't think it's a good idea.
And then John's asking, what do you do with hot water heater on winterizing?
Somebody asked, what do you do with the hot water heater on winterizing? As long as earlier you bypass it out, so that way the antifreeze is not going into the hot water tank, and you have pulled your drain plug, and as long as it's drained out, you'll be fine. So you got to make sure that it drains out. The drain's at the bottom. Some people have been known to blow air through the inside of it to get a little bit on the bottom out, but as long as you drain it, it is fine. It will not look like, if you drain it, I promise you, it will not look like this. All right, any other questions?
That looks like all of them.
Okay, awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I appreciate it. It's awesome to have everybody here. Our next one's going to be on, like I said, storage and postseason inspections and maintaining it for the winter, which will more than likely be here on Facebook. I do not think we're going to be doing that live in person. Probably won't be doing any live in person ones for a little bit. So we will be here for you on Facebook. I will be putting out those 2 videos within 2 weeks. You will see them here on Facebook. I'm also trying to branch them out, but for right now, here on Facebook, you'll be able to find that, and it'll just say the how to winterize, basic how to winterize. I will be doing one for Nautilus, and I'll be doing one for the regular. So we'll have those ready for you in 2 weeks. So keep your eyes peeled for those. And like I said, if you guys are ready to done camping, give our service department a call, preferably Monday or Tuesday, as we only have one person down there today. But give us a call and we can set up an appointment and go from there. The only other thing though, if you do have if you want to have our waiting winterize appointment, we cannot add anything to it. We're not able to look at any other items. It is merely a winterize only. If you have an appointment for later on beyond the like say if we're backed up and we can't bring anybody in for till November or December because it can get busy during this time, you can still make a waiting winterize appointment so that way your system is safe, and then bring it back during the appointment for the other items. And I do recommend that. I do recommend that because we never know when the freeze is coming, so it's always better to be prepared. So I appreciate it. Thank you everybody for joining. Oh.
One last question.
Is this
going to be on the Facebook page for later viewing?
Yes, this seminar, I always post them at the end. As long as I don't hit the wrong button, it will be posted on there, and for you to view and scroll through whatever information you might need. And then the 2 basic how-tos will be up coming up soon. So if you guys have any other questions, please don't leave them on the comment page after we close this out. As for we don't monitor it after we close out the live seminar, please call us 262-321-2500. Ask for service. We're open till 1 today. As for that, our normal hours on Monday through Friday. Appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you very much.